The next day, I show up in LA. I got there at night. I left in the morning. I got there at night. Went to my boy's house. He's like, you could stay here while you look for an apartment. And I was like, cool. So I lived there with my friend Mike Carroll, Chico Brenes, and then Tony Ferguson, who was a pro skater at the time. And now he does a brand. He's in, I don't know if you heard of it. It's a sneaker brand called Rone, Rone. He makes like high-end sneakers now. But he used to own A-Life shoes, actually. He was the one doing all the A-Life shoes, but way after we were roommates, yeah. So, like years later, obviously. But that's it. I moved in there, and then I went to the office the next day, and they were like, they weren't really like giving me an office space or anything. I was just kind of there, like, I didn't really know how to run a company. I was just learning I was designing graphics for a couple years on my own, but I was, really green. I didn't really know how to do shit. I just really learned there. That's what it was.
You didn't have no employees or
nothing. It was just me. So basically, their deal, it wasn't like what I was expecting, because they didn't really like give me any type of like distribution deal, is what you would call it, I guess. What they did is I went there and they would sell it. That was their whole thing, is that they were selling it through their sales reps to all their accounts, right? I didn't have all these stores. They had like this huge account base because they're one of the biggest skateboard companies in the world at the time, Girl and Chocolate Skateboards. So that's what I got out of it. But funding, I still had to fund it myself. So that was the problem. Diamond, luckily, was something that I never had to like build up into something that people wanted from the very first time I made t-shirts, which was a trip, especially back then, is that people were asking for them right away. So that's where I lucked out. So even when I was there, all the stores already saw, like I said earlier, about how all my friends were wearing the shit in skateboard magazines and all that, but it was really hard for anyone to get because I was, selling them out of my apartment. And I didn't have any, like, a lot of skate stores that I sold to. So when I went there, they sold it to all the skate stores, but then I couldn't produce the product because I didn't have the money. So everything was always sold out, right? So I'd make a t-shirt line. People liked it. Shops would order it, but then I didn't have money to make more. So months would go by where there'd be no product, but then all I knew at the time was skateboarding, right? Make hardware, make fucking skateboards, make, sell t-shirts and hats. I didn't even know. I knew about like some streetwear stuff, but not really. Streetwear wasn't really a thing back then, but there were brands. You know what I mean? There was like, who was around back then? Like Extra Large. I would think like, Extra Large and Fresh Jive and things like that were like brands that weren't skate. It was like the only thing you would see people wearing that weren't actual skate brands, but they were like t-shirt brands. I didn't really know much about them, but when I was at Girl, two of the artists that they had there had their own brands. One was called The Quiet Life, and another one was called Commonwealth Stacks by this guy named Mike Leone, and Andy Mueller did The Quiet Life. And I used to trip because this was before any like social media days. This is in 2000. So 18 years ago, in 2000 is when I actually went to LA and started working with these guys, and they had these brands, and I asked them, where do you sell this stuff? And they're like, I sell it online. I'm like, what do you mean you sell it online? Like, who do you sell it to? They're like, just people. I send out like an email thing with my graphics and people buy it online. I'm like, that's fucking trip, right? And I'm like, how much you sell your t-shirts for? And they're like, $30. I'm like, damn, people buy t-shirts for $30? That's insane. Our t-shirts at the time, regular skate shirts, were like, $20 or something. That was just the norm. And that was the first time I was introduced to anything outside of skate that was clothing related. And I was like, man, the stuff I'm making, I feel like it appeals to skaters, but it seems that it's appealing to people outside of skateboarding, but I wouldn't know what to do or how to reach them. Um, but these guys have this weird thing going on where they're selling like mail order to customers that just like art shirts, because that's what they were really making, were art shirts. But essentially, this was streetwear they were making, right? Um, so 6 years at Girl Skateboards, I was there flipping T-shirts basically with no money. But this is how Diamond started becoming so popular. Was because I didn't have money to make stuff, and everyone just thought the shit was limited, right? Like, it was really hard to get. It was in all the magazines. All the best skate pros were wearing it. And then I made a shirt. Fuck, see, my years might get messed up because I don't really remember. It was so long ago.
It's all good.
But I made a shirt with a Misfit skull on it, with my boy Rick from New York, one of the old Supreme heads. Do you know Rick? Rick Riok?
I heard of him. Don't know him.
Okay, so he's one of the OG Supreme kids that I knew before, before Supreme was even a shop, but he ended up being, he's part of that crew. He was starting some little brand that he was calling, it was called Collabo. So Collabo NY. And so we made the Misfits shirt with the gold tooth together on that. And this is before people were doing collaborations or whatever. So we made that shirt, and Lil Wayne wore it on, I don't even know how he got it, but Lil Wayne was wearing it on the cover of Rides magazine. And then he had a full article, him and Baby, inside. The magazine was just him rocking the shirt, and people were tripping on that. And that was like my first like celebrity person or whatever wearing Diamond. I was tripping on that, right? I'm like, Lil Wayne, that's so tight, because this is like, the early 2000s when he was just like super popping. And then so Diamond was becoming really popular just from that, and streetwear